Today, while it's fresh in my mind, I'd like to talk about conditioning and altitude conditioning in particular. I'm winding up an attempt at 5 peaks. I started out at 2 a.m. and I was thinking, wow, I am ready to do 5 peaks above 10,000 feet in the Spring Mountains. Now, there's only one problem, which I discovered, and that's that I have not conditioned myself for altitude recently. The highest altitude I've achieved recently has been around 8,500 feet. Now, I did 4 peaks earlier this summer, 2019. I did 4 peaks earlier, and no problem. Had a great time, and you can see that on the 4 peak circuit page. Why could I only do the first 2 of 5 peaks today? And the reason is that I was not conditioned for altitude. I had let myself just stay down to 8,500 feet. So more in just a little bit. So how did I know something was wrong? Well, I set out to do the first 2 peaks. I did Fletcher Peak, it's around 10,300. And then I did Mummy Mountain at 11,500. Now after Fletcher Peak, I was exhausted, but I managed to make it up to the top of Mummy Mountain. The only problem is that I was starting to feel very sick, and then I started up toward Lee Peak and totally shut me down. I was feeling thirsty, dry mouth, headache, just exhausted. That should not have been. According to my earlier conditioning, that would not have happened because I've done Griffith, Charleston, Lee, and Mummy 4 peak circuit. You can see on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. But that was like 2 or 3 months ago. The problem is that I was not conditioned for altitude, and you know, conditioning is not something that once you've achieved it, it just stays with you. It's something that you can lose within 2 weeks to 30 days. Definitely, you can lose your conditioning. And the problem is your brain remembers what you were able to do. Just like I was thinking, wow, I'm going to do 5 peaks today. My brain remembered that, yes, I can do that. But my body was no longer conditioned for the altitude. And the result is that I had all these symptoms. And I was wondering, what in the world is wrong? I should be able to do this. I've still been running every day. In fact, the last few weeks, I've had even more of a steady 6 miles a day. That's all it took for me to be able to do the 4 peak circuit in July. But the one difference was that I had not been above 8,500 feet. All of a sudden, I tackled The first two mountains of the 5-peak circuit. Fletcher Peak at 10,300, and was exhausted after that. And then went up to Mummy Mountain, 11,500, and then decided, okay, now I'm ready to head on up to Lee Peak. Well, I got shut down before I hit Lee Peak. Sick, headache, exhausted, dehydrated, dry mouth, ran out of water because I'd been drinking so much. I think my body trying to make up for the fact that I was not conditioned properly. And so the moral of the story is you can't ride on past conditioning. If you try, you may be setting yourself up for a world of hurt, because your brain may remember what you could do, but your body can't do it anymore. So basically what you need to do is work your way up to whatever conditioning, altitude conditioning, physical conditioning. Work your way up gradually to where you were before, rather than just take off and try to accomplish some physical feat that your brain remembers, but your body is no longer conditioned to perform. So that's the word for today. By the way, here's a little lesson in self-diagnosis. How did I know that it was altitude sickness? Because when I dropped altitude and got back to my conditioned altitude level of around 9,000 feet, the symptoms all went away, or most of them went away. So that's, you just gotta test things out, be really good at reading your body, reading the signs that your body gives you, and then be a detective. Diagnose what's happening and try different things, and once you learn what caused a particular problem, whether it be a joint injury or in this case altitude sickness, then that's one more piece of information that you've got in your arsenal. And you keep adding those up over weeks, months, and years, and you may find yourself to the point where you can diagnose problems very quickly. You can do whatever intervention is needed and get back on track, rather than wondering what the problem is and thinking, well, I guess I'm not meant to hike or run or whatever type of physical activity you're engaged in. Don't give up. Just diagnose. Be a good detective of your own body. Okay. That's enough about altitude conditioning and self-diagnosis. Onward. So what's the proper way to condition yourself for altitude? I can only speak for myself. And this is what I know, that I do not exceed last week's altitude by more than 1,000 feet. And maybe 2,000 feet. But the point is that if I can do a certain altitude. 1 week, I can do that plus another 1,000, maybe 2,000 feet if I stretch it the next week. And as long as I don't make a larger jump, things seem to work for me. So, apply that to your altitude conditioning, and you may find that you don't have the situation that I experienced today.